For spine-chilling night shift tales, revealed secrets of the sinister and haunted cursed workplaces, Jenny gripped the steering wheel of her old sedan, the moonlight casting ghostly shadows through the cracked windshield. Every mile she drove deeper into the heart of the town felt like a descent into despair. St. Gregory's Hospital loomed ahead, a monstrous silhouette draped in darkness. Once a beacon of hope, it had become a sentence of dread wrapped in horror stories. Whispers of malpractice and vanished patients lingered like a sharp, iron taste on her tongue. She didn't want to be there, but the night shift was the only way to keep her family afloat after the divorce. The hospital doors creaked open, revealing a foul smell and a chill that wrapped around her bones. The silence was suffocating, each echo of her footsteps amplifying what remained of her already frayed nerves. Just beyond the threshold, Marcus awaited her, his face lit by the faint glow of a flashlight. "Ready?" he asked, a hint of excitement dancing in his eyes, his obsession with the past setting her pulse racing. Every corner of St. Gregory's welcomed them with unsettling groans and the disembodied whispers of things they couldn't see. A chill crept beneath her skin as they roamed the peeling corridors. Faded portraits of doctors and patients lined the walls, their eyes seemed to follow her, a reminder of lives trapped within this decaying tomb. A flicker from a dying fluorescent bulb sent her heart racing. "It's just the wiring," she breathed, but her voice trembled. They found the records room, stocked with forgotten histories. "Did you know," Marcus began, his voice a sharp whisper, "that Dr. Hamilton, the chief surgeon, was accused of losing patients on the operating table?" The shadows danced around them, absorbing his words like hungry ghosts. With every story he told, the air grew thicker, laden with an ancient dread that seeped into her psyche. But Jenny couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Each crack and pop echoed, promising that something loomed just beyond her sight. "Do you hear that?" she asked uneasily, her heart pounding in her chest. Marcus paused. A faint murmur brushed against the silence, then vanished like smoke. Fear gripped her. Maybe it was exhaustion, it had to be. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the clock ticked past 2, the tension thickened. They uncovered a file revealing horrific treatment practices. Patients vanished without a trace. The connection to the notorious doctor felt like a noose tightening around her. What if she began, her voice faltering, what if he is still here? At that moment, a crash echoed down the hallway, sending their hearts into their throats. They spun around, eyes wide, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Shapes shifted in the periphery, and when she turned, a shadow flitted just out of view. Panic gripped her as she realized it felt familiar. She blinked hard, it couldn't be true. But the children's laughter she thought she heard drift through the corridor rang across her memories. Was it her daughter calling out? The very thought sent ice through her veins. In the thickening dread, she grasped Marcus' arm, the betrayal of her trust weighing on her. Could he be the one feeding the sinister energy that seemed to weave through the walls? Her instincts pushed her to investigate the sinister truth lurking in these vacuous halls. But as a scream shattered the dark, echoing through St. Gregory's and ripping through her heart, Jenny's courage wavered, and a bone-chilling realization dawned: there were darker things alive here, things that demanded a horrific reckoning. Who among them would be the next victim? Jenny's mind raced as she stumbled backward, the grip on Marcus' arm tightening so much it felt like she might leave a mark. The scream had echoed against the walls, twisting in her ears like a haunting melody. It came from somewhere deeper within the hospital, a corridor she hadn't noticed before. With trembling fingers, she pointed down the darkened hall. What was that? She gasped, though she feared she already knew the answer. Just the wind," Marcus stammered, but the shake in his voice betrayed his words. They exchanged a glance filled with unspoken dread, a silent acknowledgement of an unholy silence settling over them. The thick air felt charged, alive, as if something was preparing to pounce upon them. As they moved cautiously toward the source of the scream, heartbeats drumming in their chests, Jenny clung to the hope that she and Marcus were merely hallucinating from the oppressive atmosphere of the hospital. But another scream sliced through the air, primal and raw, echoing with a fear that seemed to come from the very walls. "We need to leave," she whispered, though her feet felt nailed to the ground. But Marcus had already taken a step forward, drawn by some morbid curiosity. "Wait!" She called after him, but her voice came out as barely a breath. He turned, eyes wide. "Something else here." It was barely a whisper, but the urgency in his tone made her stomach twist. Their shadows flickered on the walls as they ventured deeper. The corridor grew narrower, dimly lit by emergency lights that sputtered, casting a sickly yellow glow. Water dripped from the ceiling, each drop echoing like the slow ticking of a clock ticking down to a disaster. With every step, Jenny felt time stretch, taut like a rubber band, about to snap. Then, they reached a door. The wood was worn, significant wear on the handle suggesting frequent use. Curiosity propelled Marcus forward, his hand resting on the cold metal. "I have to see," he breathed, his eyes bright with hunger for the unknown. "No!" Jenny pleaded, an icy chill racing down her spine. But it was too late. With a sharp twist, he pushed the door open. A gust of stale air blasted her, and she recoiled, her hand slipping from the doorframe. Inside, boxes and charts lay strewn. Medical instruments lay discarded, and the faint smell of antiseptic mingled with something far worse, decay. But it wasn't the remnants of the room that chilled her, it was what loomed in the corner. She squinted, heart hammering. A figure stood, its back to them, swaying slightly, a hollow silhouette cloaked in despair. "Turn around!" she shouted, adrenaline flooding her veins. The figure froze. Marcus stepped forward, driven by a foolhardy impulse. "Who are you?" he called out. And then, as if in slow motion, the figure began to pivot. Jenny's breath hitched. It wasn't just any patient. As the creature turned fully, she saw the ghastly face, a face warped in agony, hollowed eyes gazing into something far beyond them. "Help!" it rasped, voice slurred and broken, resonating like a stuck record. But there was something in that request, something deeper that thrummed with the echoes of despair. Before she could scream, another burst of movement from behind sent her heart crashing into her throat. The door slammed shut, and the sound reverberated, sealing them within. Panic clawed at her throat. "We're trapped!" she exclaimed, urgency bubbling over. Marcus lunged for the handle, grasping it desperately as shadows began to slip between the walls, thick and fluid. They whispered her name, addressing her like an old friend. Jenny came the voice again, not just whispers but a chant, roller coastering up from the depths of the hospital's dark past. The pounding in her ears grew deafening. Could they really be calling her? Did they know her? Suddenly, all at once, the lights flickered and went out, plunging them into inky blackness. The door felt cold against her palm, and she could barely see Marcus, just a faint silhouette against the void. "Stay close!" she shouted into the dark, gripping his arm like he was a lifeline. But that eerie echo returned, a low rumble that sent shivers racing down her spine. Things were shifting, moving, and in that darkness, Jenny felt her fears take on forms. Then, a small, yet powerful voice, innocent, almost sweet, cut through the terror. "Mommy?" The walls of St. Gregory's began to echo her deepest fear. Who was really there with her? In that moment, she knew they would have to confront the darkness, whatever it was, even if it meant losing themselves in it. As they echoed into madness, another scream rose, blending into the sinister symphony surrounding them. What awaited in the darkness of that hospital? The darkness thickened around them, pressing in like a wet blanket. Jenny's heart raced as the innocence of that small voice twisted in her mind. Mommy? It clawed at her sanity, dragging her back to moments of warmth she thought long buried. Was it calling her or taunting her? Marcus! She cried, her voice hoarse now, barely louder than a whisper above the impending weight of despair. But his grip was gone. Panic surged within her, the agony of separation slicing through the dark. Where are you, Marcus? Silence answered. And then, out of the shadows, came a low, rumbling laughter, not cruel, but almost playful. It echoed in the void, reverberating off unseen surfaces, sending shards of ice racing down her spine. Help, the figure muttered again, now closer. Its raspy voice bled into the room, thick and syrupy, wrapping around her like chains. With her pulse pounding in her ears, Jenny forced herself to look. The figure stood just outside the edge of her fading vision, still swaying. Who are you? She managed, a quiver catching her voice. The dim emergency lights flickered weakly, casting twisted shadows that danced and writhed like lost souls hungry for escape. Help, the voice begged, scratching at her mind like a rat in a trap. She felt it scratch at her heart. Her breaths grew shallow as she scanned the darkness for Marcus. He had to be close, she could feel the pull of their connection. Marcus, say something. The dread gnawed at her insides, twisting like a knife. A shuffling noise, a faint whisper, and then breaking through the dark a flash of light. It flickered, revealing Marcus behind her. His face was pale, eyes wide, the terror between them a palpable bridge. He stumbled forward, grasping for her like a man caught in a nightmare he couldn't wake from. There's something in here. He gasped, his voice laced with raw panic. The figure flickered in and out of the light, growing bolder, tightening its spectral grip. Jenny felt trapped as it inched closer, every second stretching into eternity. She could see it more clearly now, the hollow cheeks, the matted hair, and the eyes that bore into her soul. They spoke without words, an unending scream of anguish echoing in her mind. What had happened to this wretched soul? What tragedy had fused its essence with this forsaken hospital? Let us get out, Marcus urged, panic rising in his voice, but the door was still shut. We're running out of time. Where do we go? She didn't know which way was out, only the darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. The walls seemed to pulse, the shadows creeping closer, like they were alive, slithering, moving, watching. Move! He shouted, ripping her from her thoughts and shoving her toward an old window at the far side of the room. It was barricaded, but desperation drove them forward. They fought against the weight of the shadows pressing down upon them. Just lift it. It's our only chance. Her fingers clawed at the edges, but it wouldn't budge. The laughter grew louder, weaving around them, echoing their fear as she pushed with everything she had. And just as hope began to slip from their grasp, a loud bang jolted the air, a clamor from behind them. They whirled to face the room again, the figure now impossibly close, its presence a dark void that sucked the very light from the room. Help, it rasped once more, and this time, Jenny felt it cut deep into her chest. A familiar warmth burned in her eyes as tears streamed down her cheeks. Let it go! Marcus screamed, but Jenny did not see him, for she was lost in the suffocating gaze of the lost spirit. The walls trembled, shaking Mommy. The voice reeled again, echoing a chilling memory too deep to ignore. In that horrifying realization, something cracked within her, the urge to dive into darkness, to embrace the call of the lost. And just when she thought she would succumb, something unholy erupted, a cacophony of screams, both hers and those of unseen captives. Marcus! It erupted her throat, but would he hear her? The shadows closed in, ever closer, and darkness began to envelop her mind. She felt herself breaking away, slipping into the void. Who was she meant to be? What did she leave behind? Suddenly, the lights surged back on. The laughter shattered, and the figure froze, seeming to dissolve into the illumination. "Jenny!" Marcus shouted, pulling her back, wrenching her from the grip of despair. "We have to move now." But just as they turned to make a desperate break for escape, the ground shook beneath them. A low growl resonated through the air, and the figure morphed into an angry mass of shadows, reaching for them, yearning to reclaim what it had lost. With frantic steps, they bolted for the door, but as they reached for the handle, it began to melt away, as if to mock their hope. "Hold on!" Marcus yelled, but terror rippled through Jenny, and in that moment, doubted if they could escape the nightmare energies that had claimed this place. As the shadows swirled tighter, her heartbeat became a drum of dread. What would they face beyond this door? Would they find safety or become part of the chorus that haunted these walls? The door disintegrated under Guillermo's hands. Their world darkened again, but was this darkness any worse than the horrors behind them? Just before they felt the pull of the shadows behind them, Jenny whispered, "What if we're meant to stay?" And with a swift gust, they plunged once more into an unfathomable abyss, wondering if they'd ever return. What waited to claim them in that haunting void? The darkness folded over them like a shroud, a weight that pressed against their skin and clawed at their sanity. Only echoes of their labored breaths filled the void, while the shadows around them writhed like anguished souls. Jenny's throat felt tight, her heart beat erratically as the cold seeped deeper into her bones. "Marcus?" she called out, her voice trembling. But his reply was swallowed by the murk, and she felt a rising tide of fear claw painfully at her chest. Each fleeting moment slipped through her fingers like sand, and silence filled every corner of the oppressive void. Then, the laughter returned, low and mocking. It twisted around them, reaching into the darkest recesses of her mind and beckoning to shadowy horrors still hidden. "Help!" came the raspy whisper once more, this time tainted with a hint of anticipation. The air thickened, swirling with a dark, suffocating energy. "Where are you?" she shouted, but the thick darkness obscured everything. Panic bubbled beneath the surface, and her skin prickled with an unnatural chill. A single thought echoed in her mind: they were not alone. Suddenly, slender fingers brushed against her arm. Jenny jumped, her heart pounding fiercely. "Marcus!" she gasped, but only darkness answered her cry, consuming what little hope remained. Then, the flickering lights returned, momentarily breaking the spell of despair. They cast jagged shadows across the walls, revealing the oppressive space they were trapped within, a crumbling corridor lined with cracked tiles and peeling paint. The walls seemed to draw closer, threatening to close in around them. "Over there!" Marcus shouted, pointing to a dimly lit break in the corridor, barely visible through the haze. Without hesitation, they sprinted toward it, hearts racing as footsteps echoed behind them. With each thudding beat, the laughter swelled, a chorus of sinister delight that echoed their fright. They rounded the corner to find a heavy door, rusted and warped, standing defiantly against the encroaching darkness. "This way!" Marcus cried, yanking it open with all his might. A rush of frigid air hit them like a wall, fanning the flames of fear in Jenny's chest. They stepped inside, slamming the door shut behind them, breathing hard, trying to grasp the fleeting sense of safety. But the laughter hadn't faded, it seeped through the door, a suffocating reminder of the dangers lurking just outside. The room they entered was dim, filled with old, dusty equipment that loomed like specters in the corners. Jenny's eyes scanned the space feebly, trying to find some semblance of safety. A flickering fluorescent bulb above them did little to ward off the shadows. "Marcus," she whispered, feeling the weight of dread settle over her like a heavy fog. "What if we're meant to be part of this?" Her voice was barely more than a breath of air. He shook his head, taking a step closer. "We need to keep moving. We can't let it get us." The determination in his voice, though shaky, sparked a flicker of hope. But just then, the light went out entirely. The engulfing darkness rushed in, swallowing them whole. Jenny felt Marcus's hand slip from hers, panic surging within her like a wildfire. "Marcus!" She screamed, but her voice was quickly drowned by the rising tide of laughter, crazy, wild, and insatiable. "Help!" The weak voice returned, sounding eerily close, dragging her attention towards the corner of the room. Jenny squinted into the abyss, feeling a cold sweat trickle down her back as the figure materialized from the dark once again, its face contorting in grotesque glee. "Join us," it hissed, words dripping with malice. "You'll never leave." She backed away instinctively, pressing herself against the wall, as the figure drew nearer, plunging deeper into her fears. "No!" she shouted, forcing her gaze away, searching for a way out. But the laughter echoed louder, creating a prison of sound, a twisted symphony urging her toward surrender. Would she be just another echo in this forsaken place? A sudden crash reverberated from behind her, making her jump. The door they had entered through splintered violently, and daylight burst through the cracks, illuminating the scene. "Get to the light!" Marcus shouted from beyond, his features flickering in the brief illumination. The shadows grew frantic, swirling like storm clouds gathering overhead. "Go!" he yelled again, and as she shifted toward him, the phantom lunged, fingers outstretched, yearning to reclaim what had been lost. Just as she reached for Marcus's hand, an icy grip tightened around her ankle, dragging her backward. She fell, limbs flailing in panic. "Marcus!" she screamed, but the light faded, consuming her in an endless darkness as she felt herself being pulled deeper into the restless void. What awaited her at the end of that sinister embrace? Would she join the choir of lost souls? The terrible laughter echoed in her ears as if mocking her struggle. And then all was silent. Coldness enveloped Jenny as she tumbled into the abyss. The shadows clung to her, an insatiable blanket that stifled screams before they could escape. Time lost meaning, seconds felt like hours, and her mind raced with desperate thoughts. Was this it? The end of her struggle? She twisted, lungs burning, seeking any sign of Marcus. But he was gone, swallowed by the laughter and the dark, a ghost lost to the void. "Marcus!" she called. Her voice faded into the oppressive silence, replaced by a distant cacophony. The laughter, sinister and mocking, danced around her like a macabre waltz. And then, through the thick darkness, she felt something shift. A whisper, soft and inviting, curled its way into her ear. "Join us." It slithered through her consciousness, wrapping around her mind, luring her deeper into despair. She squeezed her eyes shut, fighting against the seductive pull, her heart racing in defiance. "No!" As if in response, the darkness recoiled, revealing eerie flickers of movement nearby. Shapes emerged, morphed by shadows, yet somehow familiar. They twisted closer, faces contorted in expressions of both longing and torment. It was the lost ones' faces of those who had wandered into the darkness before her. Their hollow eyes begged for help, but their mouths curled into vicious, twisted smiles. "You could be one of us," they intoned in unison, each voice like a bell tolling a final farewell. Jenny stumbled back, pressing herself against a cold wall, panic igniting veins of fear. She wanted to flee but found herself anchored in place, the weight of the shadows anchoring her feet. "No. I want to become like you," she screamed, desperation lacing her voice. Beside her, the figures wriggled closer, their presence cold and suffocating. The laughter grew louder, drilling into her skull, and Jenny clutched her head in agony. "Help!" she cried, her voice tearing through the relentless echoes. The shadows recoiled like serpents disturbed, their laughter stuttering, as if her cry had thrown them off balance. Summoning every ounce of her will, she dodged the spectral grasping hands, the shadows shrinking just slightly. It felt like breaking through a surface of water. Her determination pushed against their dark essence. She took a step forward, another, and then another, until she felt a pull, a soft, warm light cutting through the gloom in the distance. "Marcus!" she shouted, seeing his figure illuminated within the glow, beckoning. Yet the laughter returned, rage bubbling beneath the surface as fingers reached out, latching onto her ankles, pulling her back down. No! She fought against the darkness with everything she had, digging her nails into the cold, overgrown tiles beneath her. But the grip tightened, threatening to drag her down into the depths of despair. "Join us," they hissed, their words drenched in a hungry anticipation that froze her blood. The light flickered again, brighter this time, as Marcus's voice called out once more. "Jenny! Don't give in." With a burst of adrenaline, she felt an energy swell within her. Gathering every ounce of strength, she kicked free from the grasping hands, tearing toward the light. The darkness shrieked as if wounded, the laughter turning to furious howls behind her. She lunged. Just as she broke through, she felt a searing pain slice through her shoulder-thin, skeletal fingers grasped her, clenching tightly. Jenny screamed, the sound filling the world around her, but as she crossed the threshold, the darkness exploded in a torrent of shadows, a furious torrent raging within the old room behind her. And then, just like that, she was through. Light blazed around her, intoxicating and warm. But that warmth quickly became searing, and Jenny found herself lying on the cold floor, gasping for air. She turned, expecting to see Marcus at her side, but the room was empty, the air thick with silence once more. Had she escaped? Or was this another deception, another trap? As Jenny pulled herself up, the flicker of a shadow caught her peripheral vision. She spun around. There, in the corner, stood a figure, the entity, its embrace extending like a shroud of dark mist, twisting and writhing. "Come back to us," it crooned softly, the voice echoing like a siren song through the night. Her heart raced again, panic setting in. How could she have escaped but not truly be free? What awaited her if she lingered in this space? Would the darkness claim her once more? In that moment, uncertainty clung to her like a vice. Would she fight through the light again, or would she succumb to the encroaching dark? A choice awaited, one more precarious than the last. The figure in the corner lingered like a malevolent shadow, its presence saturating the room with cold dread. Jenny's breath hitched as it unfurled its dark tendrils, drawing nearer, the air thickening around her. She felt the chilling grip of despair as the shape whispered her name. "Jenny, you can't escape us." Every instinct screamed for her to run, but her body felt rooted to the spot. The glow that had once seemed so warm now felt overwhelming, suffocating. It flickered as if straining against the encroaching darkness, teasing her with hope but taunting her with terror. The entity's form shifted, elongating as it glided closer, revealing faces etched with despair swirling within it, faces she recognized, distorted and pleading. Marcus's face appeared among them, mouth moving silently, as if trapped in a glass prison, begging her to understand. She stumbled back, heart pounding against her ribcage. "Why are you doing this?" she gasped, wiping tears away that threatened to spill down her cheeks. "Because you belong to us, Jenny," the whisper wrapped around her like icy fingers. "You have tasted the darkness. Now it will always call to you." With a surge of defiance, Jenny shook her head. "No. I want to listen." Torn between the seductive pull of the entity and the flicker of light behind her, she surged forward, feeling an urge to reach for that fleeting hope. But the darkness thrashed around her, pulling her back with a force she couldn't comprehend. Pained screams filled her ears, an urging cacophony of lost souls weaved into a chorus of torment. She reached toward the light, every muscle screaming for her to push ahead, to leave everything else behind. "Jenny!" A voice sliced through the din. It was stronger now, filled with urgency. It echoed from behind the veil of shadows, a cold touch of familiarity. "Stay with me. Keep fighting." It was Marcus. She had to believe he had survived. Before her stood a gaping abyss, shimmering with something fertile and alive, a contrast to the choking darkness that hungered behind her. With every ounce of strength, she lunged again, trusting in that glow. The entity writhed, its form shifting violently, and for a moment, Jenny's heart leapt with hope. She could feel the pull of the light scorching her skin, the warmth urging her closer. But the chill of the entity constricted around her, begging her to surrender. "Join us," it intoned, and the whisper turned into a howl, a guttural roar as the room began to tremble. "Fight it." Marcus's voice rang out again, a bullet of clarity in the chaos. It ignited a fire in her chest. She pushed her thoughts, memories of laughter and warmth into her heart, summoning every ounce of love she held for Marcus. "No. I choose life," she screamed, a battle cry that severed the darkness surrounding her. The entity recoiled, shrieking like the wind through brittle branches, its form faltering. For a fleeting moment, Jenny could see Marcus's eyes, filled with determination. In one fluid motion, she dived into the radiance. As she did, the world erupted in blinding light, the air crackling with energy. Jenny's body felt weightless, suspended in time, and just as she thought she was breaking through, she sensed a heaviness, a weight anchoring her back, cruel hands encircling her throat. The darkness lashed out, furious and frenzied. "Come back," it hissed, the allure dripping with malice. With her pulse racing and panic clawing at her throat, she opened her eyes to see the light flicker violently, a beacon amidst the chaos. But now, a flicker of darkness wrapped around her. She was nowhere and everywhere, a ghost caught between realms. Would she break free or be swallowed whole? The choice loomed before her, more dire than before. In the heart of the whirlwind, determination surged through her veins once more, and she pulled herself toward that fading light, heart firm and fierce. Fate hung suspended in the balance. But what awaited on the other side? Would the light truly be salvation, or simply a passage to something even darker? Light exploded around her, filling every gap in darkness, but it was a deceptive brightness. She felt it rivaling the consuming black that danced hungrily at the edges, ready to reclaim her. Her heart thudded like a desperate drumbeat, each pulse a reminder of her life, a life she could hold on to if she just reached deep enough. "Push through." Marcus's voice was a lifeline, ringing clear despite the chaos. But where was he now? Did he risk becoming part of the darkness's twisted fabric? Anxiety cracked through her like ice, jolting her further toward the light. But the weight pulled harder, dark fingers digging into her skin, whispering cruel promises of belonging, of power in surrender. "You will never escape. This is your true home." She felt it yearning, like a beast starved for connection, wanting to swallow her whole. Fear gripped her throat and squeezed. Memories flashed before her eyes, laughter, moments of joy, all laced with a bitter reminder of the faces trapped in the entity. Each one tugged at her, pleading for freedom, begging to be remembered. "Stay with me, Jenny." The urgency in Marcus's voice sliced through the din again, fueling her resolve. She could fight. She could win. If only she believed, truly believed, that the light held salvation. With a primal roar, she turned and swam against the surging tide of darkness. The air crackled, blistering against her skin as she tore through the shadows. One final push. Her fingertips grazed the glowing edge, a barrier between despair and hope. Suddenly, fingers released their deadly grip. Gasping, her lungs burned as she plummeted into blinding light that felt like home, promising warmth like summer sun. She spiraled forward, surrendering to its pull. But just as she thought she had crossed that invisible line, darkness surged violently, a final desperate grip clawing at her essence, telling her she would never be free. "You can't leave us, you'll be back," it hissed. She broke through. With a strangled cry, color flooded her vision, vibrant hues burst into life. But it was wrong, lurking shadows still flitted at the edges of reality, whispering ancient secrets in a language that sent chills down her spine. She lay sprawled on her back, pulse racing, struggling to make sense of her surroundings. The air tasted stale. Panic spiraled through her again. Where was Marcus? A shiver coursed through her spine. Staring up vast, star-speckled night, she felt the familiar presence hanging above her. The same darkness loomed ominously, but now with a suffering kind of hope mixed in, a promise of impermanence. "Marcus!" she cried, voice trembling. Nothing. An all-consuming silence filled the space, absorbing her words like a sponge. She scrambled upright and scanned her surroundings. Dark silhouettes emerged from the trees, rooted and heavy. Fog pooled around their feet, twisting shadows that loomed as if waiting. And then she felt it, the unmistakable chill of his breath against her ear, his whisper curling around her like a dark ribbon. "I'm here, Jenny." Always her heart raced, but instead of comfort, dread seeped in. Each word dripped with an unholy sweetness, tinged with something sinister. "Why can't I see you?" Look closer. The figures stepped forward, revealing faces she recognized. Far too familiar, twisted in pain, they were the lost souls of her nightmares, friends, family, and Marcus still trapped within the shroud of darkness. "Join us, Jenny." The suffocating pull returned, urging her to succumb to the darkness that now loomed with deceptive familiarity. For a second, she hesitated. It might offer safety, a way to never feel afraid again. But then another voice cut through like lightning, angry and resolute. "Fight." Could she risk it again? The choice lay before her once more, a decision bound with desperation. Would she plunge back into the light, or not? With a shuddering breath, she reached into the shadowy void before her, grasping for the truth. What awaited her this time? Would there be hope or something worse? And as she reached forward, the figures around her began to close in. She had to make a choice, but what if it was already too late? Terror clamped down on her chest as those familiar faces moved closer, their twisted smiles sending her heart racing. The fog thickened, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. She could feel their breath, cold and rancid, whispering secrets that made her skin crawl. "Join us, you know you want to," they chorused, a haunting melody that mixed with the rustle of trees, the crackle of the night. "Stop!" Jenny shouted, though her words barely pierced through the smoky air. She could feel their relentless pull, dragging her towards them, towards the darkness. Memories flickered like dying embers in her mind: laughter, light, the warmth of Marcus. Everything seemed to hinge on that one connection. "Where are you, Marcus?" The name was a desperate prayer. But no answer came. Instead, the shadows giggled, an echoing sound that dug into her psyche. "Don't trust him." A new voice, rich and smooth, slithered through the darkness, chilling her marrow. "He is not who you think he is." She stumbled back, fear shocking through her veins. "What do you mean?" "Join us." They pressed again, grinding closer, forming a wall of tormented souls. "Get away." She backed up, but a twisted root caught her ankle, and down she went, tumbled into the damp earth. The shadows flashed before her eyes, flickering and weaving wretched forms of the people she once knew. Their eyes were sunken, hollow pits of despair, seeking solace. "Fight back." The voice commanded again, stronger this time. It was Marcus. She knew it had to be. With a sudden surge of determination, Jenny pulled herself up. "I refuse." She screamed, thrusting her hands out at the encroaching figures. For a moment, the fog seemed to shimmer, the figures hesitated, startled by her resistance. "Why do you fight?" they hissed, voices swirling like wisps of smoke. "This is your birthright. You belong with us." "No." She could feel the light within her flickering back to life, pushing against the shadows. Remember why you came." Marcus's voice called to her again, clearer. Her memories flooded back. The warmth of sunlight cutting through the trees, a bonfire crackling as they shared stories. Late nights spent laughing with her friends, dreams of a future filled with travel and adventure. For every dark memory, a light shone brighter. "Fight the darkness!" she yelled, now ripping herself free from the earth's grip, pushing against the pulling hands that tried to grasp at her. "I want to live." With a roar, she took a step back, and then another. The figures shrieked, their forms beginning to dissolve in the haze. A burst of blistering light erupted around her, filling the air with sizzling energy. But even as she felt the warmth of the light embrace her, the chilling whisper of despair clawed at her heels. You cannot escape it, you're bound to us. Heart pounding, she spun around to find a new path, her desperation paving a way through the engulfing fog. Yet, shadows swarmed closer, weaving tighter. The darkness began to seep into her thoughts, filling her head with doubts. Would it ever truly let her go? And then she inhaled, heart racing as she caught a glimpse ahead, a fissure in the darkness, a thin line that pulsed with the soft glow of hope. Marcus! She screamed, fueled by recklessness. She could feel the weight of those lost souls reaching for her, but she wouldn't stop. This was a chance. But just as she surged forward, a sharp chill wrapped around her throat. The hands of the lost yanked at her, pulling her back. You belong to us, Jenny, you always will. The world around her blurred, and she could hardly see the light anymore. It felt like fighting a rip-tide, drowning beneath the waves of her own fears. She could either stay, suffocated by despair, or risk everything for the flickering glow ahead. What if she failed? What if the light was gone forever this time? But could she live knowing she never tried? With every ounce of strength, she pierced through the clutching darkness, grasping for that light with a primal scream. And then everything went black. As silence fell, a single question echoed in the void. Heavy and ominous, what had she lost in the chaos? The darkness wrapped around Jenny like a heavy shroud, smothering her senses. She felt weightless, suspended in a void where time ceased to exist. Silence pressed against her, dense and consuming. Panic gripped her chest, and she fought to find her breath. She had to wake up from this nightmare. Suddenly, her heart lurched as a flicker illuminated the space around her. Shapes emerged more solidly than they had in the fog, their faces now twisted masks of sorrow. They were near, too near, and she could see their features, hollow eyes staring into her very soul, mouths moving, but sound was lost to her. Help us, a voice, barely a whisper, yet it caught Jenny's attention like a hook. You can save us. As they got closer, she heard the soft clicking of fingernails against their palms, a rhythmic beat that echoed like an ominous drum. A shiver snaked down her spine. Who were they? Were they the lost souls she had seen before? Get away from me! She shouted, but her voice felt fragile in the consuming blackness. The figures didn't flinch. In fact, they moved closer, revealing the jagged smiles carved into their faces, marred by despair. The world around her pulsed with that same dim light, each heartbeat fueling its glow. Visions blurred into existence, a dusty room illuminated by flickering fluorescent lights, a long corridor lined with rusting machinery, and the oppressive weight of unseen eyes watching her. She was at the factory, her former workplace. Why had she been drawn back here? Jenny Marcus's voice broke through the haze, clear as day. I'm here. Marcus. Her heart surged, focus sharpening. But before she could move, the whispers filled the air again, a chorus of despair. Don't trust him, he's one of us now. Shut up. She commanded, rage mixing with her fear. You're just trying to keep me here. With renewed determination, she stumbled forward, desperate to find Marcus, desperate to escape the hopeless cries surrounding her. Each step felt heavier than the last, shadows grasping at her sneakers, trying to pull her back into their depths. You will not win. She screamed, a primal roar that echoed through the dark tunnel, forcing the figures to hesitate. Join us, they murmured, drowning her in their despair. But Jenny's memories surged back, laughter, warmth, the feeling of belonging. She couldn't let this darkness fold around her. It would claim her like it had claimed them. Suddenly, the world lurched again, the factory warped before her eyes. The floor shook, machinery clattered, and a low hum pulsated through the walls, the sound morphing into a terrifying growl. She couldn't stay here, the chaos was swelling like a storm. Marcus! She called again, a desperate plea. But no answer came. As she bolted towards the flickering light at the end of the corridor, the air thickened, transformed into a palpable entity, suffocating and smothering. Flee all you want. The shadows screeched, their voices now an unholy choir. You will return. No. Every ounce of her being screamed for freedom. Just as she thought she'd burst into that light, a freezing grip clasped around her wrist, holding her back. She twirled, frantically searching the darkness for the source, but it was everywhere. Join us. They howled, and the horrible reality of it clawed at her mind. No. I want tea. With one last desperate effort, she threw herself towards the light, only to feel the grip tighten, a sickening comfort in the familiarity. As Jenny was pulled back into the haunting abyss, one thought pierced through her panicked haze: was there ever really a way out, or was she just another soul lost in their twisted game? Every shadow seemed to nod knowingly, a chorus of anticipation growing. You'll never escape, you will find your place among us. And then, the light surged and extinguished all at once, leaving only the echoes of their laughter drifting into the void. What waited for her in that darkness? Would she ever discover the truth about Marcus? The echoes of laughter receded into the abyss as Jenny's heart raced, pumping with adrenaline. The shadows loomed around her like smothering hands, clawing for her sanity. She fought against their pull, desperate to breathe, desperate to believe that somehow, she could escape this cursed fate. Marcus! She cried out again, her voice ripped by fear. The darkness shifted, and there it was, the flicker of light, glowing like an ember in a dying fire. It pulsed, promising warmth, hope, and the possibility of safety. Jenny took a step forward, then another. Each movement felt like pushing through thick mud, shadows wrapping around her ankles like chains trying to pull her back into the void. A whimper escaped her lips. Join us, the figures whispered again, their voices dripped with longing and despair, trying to tempt her into their ghastly embrace. Images of lost moments flashed before her: joy, laughter, the gentle hug of memories that felt tethered to Marcus. In that crucial moment, she remembered the promise they'd made to each other, to be there, to survive, together. Marcus! Her voice rang out, clearer, stronger this time. The shadows recoiled, confused by her defiance. The air stirred, and she sensed a presence behind her, radiating determination. I'm coming for you. The light intensified, sparking a flame of courage within her. No! She shouted, pulling away from the grasping tendrils of darkness. You can't have me. Her words held the weight of resilience, and they struck like a hammer cracking against stone. A sudden surge of energy rushed through her as she ran toward the glowing beacon ahead. The figures hissed and shrieked, their cries morphing into a chaotic cacophony of anguish that echoed along the dilapidated walls. Jenny pushed forward, the laughter waning, struggling beneath the clamor. Close your eyes. A voice called to her, a familiar echo. It was Marcus, strong and steadfast. Focus on the light. With every ounce of will, she squeezed her eyes shut, her breath coming in ragged gasps. In her mind, she envisioned the warmth, a sunlit day, a promise of love. I believe in us. She shouted, and the mantra pushed against the darkness, scattering its influence. And then, bursting through the chaos, came a pull, a tug of warmth surrounded her. She opened her eyes just as she reached the light, allowing it to envelop her like a reassuring cocoon. In an instant, a violent ripple tore through the shadows. They hissed and shrieked as the radiance expelled them, their twisted forms withering under the force. With a final push, the light swallowed her whole. Jenny crashed down hard onto cold tiles, gasping for air, her heart hammering in her chest. She was back on the floor of St. Gregory's hospital. The darkness had receded, leaving only the whispers of lost souls fading away into silence. Panic clawed at her throat as she quickly scrambled to her feet, searching, praying. Marcus? Over here. His voice broke through the remnants of despair, shaky yet alive. Jenny spun around, relief flooding her as she caught sight of him. Marcus stood by a broken window, the moonlight spilling in, illuminating his features pale but alive, determination etched into his brow. You came back for me, he exclaimed, and that warmth spread through her once more. I thought I lost you. She rushed to him, embracing him fiercely. But the shadows danced just beyond the edges of her vision, still lurking, still threatening. We need to go, she urged, pulling him toward the exit. As they raced down the hall, the silence hung heavily around them. Yet the moment they stepped outside, the chill of night felt lighter. The moon bathed the ground in silver, and they breathed in the crisp air, feeling the weight of the darkness beginning to dissipate. You did it, Jenny, Marcus said, his voice steady again. You broke free. Jenny looked up, seeing the stars twinkling against the vast expanse of night. But at what cost? She said, recovery still tinged with the haunting nature of the shadows. What if they come back? He took her hands, squeezing tight. We face that together. Whatever it takes. And together they walked into the dawning light, the morning sun inching its way above the horizon, banishing the darkness for good. They forged a new path, tethered to one another, remembering the laughter and warmth they fought so hard to reclaim. As they stepped into the gleaming new day ahead, Jenny knew that no matter the shadows that lingered, they would always face them together, hand in hand, hearts alive with cherished memories and perhaps one day, the promise of healing. The heavy blanket of darkness lifted like a shadow at dawn, and the weight of yesterday washed away like the tide. But deep within, Jenny knew they would never forget. To those who dare enter the night, hold the light close, for it is the only shield against the dreadful whispers that beckon. If you've made it this far, it's time to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Every click helps more than you know. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. I want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel. I appreciate every single one of you.